Hello students and welcome to week 4 of our science fair posters. This week we're going to be going further into depth with talking about our question, hypothesis, procedure, and conclusion that we wrote in class. So if you were absent any of those days or you want to just make any changes to that, go ahead and take out your science fair folder and see what you have written for those, and let's talk about each one. Okay, so starting with the question needs to be written in an answer that you can be able to answer at the end of your experiment. So what is it that you're trying to test? What is it that you're trying to figure out? What is the whole point of your science experiment? What do we need to know by the end of it? So for example, if you are doing the bubblegum experiment, well, what is it that you're trying to test? Are you trying to test which bubblegum will have the longest flavor or which bubblegum has the biggest bubble? What is it that you tested? Okay. Another example is if you did the paper airplane one. Well, which paper airplane or which type of paper is gonna fly the furthest? Okay, so write your question to make sure that it can be answered by the end of your experiment. Let's move on to the hypothesis. Remember, the hypothesis is just an educated guess as to what you think is going to happen. So you have your question. Now, what is your first prediction? What is your first response, your first answer? Now, you can write it in the same way that you've written in a class where you said, I think that blank because. Tell us why. Why do you think that's going to happen? Does your hypothesis make sense? Is it reasonable? Can your reasoning be backed by evidence? So if you happen to say that you think the magazine paper is going to fly the furthest, well, why do you think that? Is it going to be proven by the end of your experiment that you're correct or incorrect? Okay? Now, remember, your hypothesis does not have to be correct. That is the point. We're testing to see if our hypothesis is true or not. So don't fear if it's not. That is the point of being a scientist and experimenting, is to find out if our guesses are true or false. Okay? Let's move on to the procedure. Okay? This is probably a portion that everybody needs to work on. We did not spend a lot of class time on this, but you can look back at your scientist journal that I passed out in class that we spent time writing on. This is just explaining the steps of your experiment. What did you do first? What did you do second? Then what did you do last? What did you find out at the last? These are just step-by-step things. You can list these from 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can write a paragraph like you have written it on your journal. However you want to explain that is up to you, but it just needs to be on the board somewhere of you explaining what you did first, then second, then last, or whatever order that you want to go in, starting with the first thing you did and the last thing you did. Okay? And the last part is our conclusion. This is a really important part. This is the whole reason why we did our hypothesis. Now we want to know, was it true? Was your hypothesis correct? What happened at the end of your experiment? Okay, and if it's incorrect, then why do you think you were incorrect? What did you find out at the end? And lastly, what did you learn? If the magazine paper flew the furthest, well, what did you learn about the magazine paper? Or if that bubblegum lasted the longest, well, what did you learn about that flavor? What are the ingredients in the flavor that made it last longer than the other flavor? Look into the reasoning why it panned out that way in your experiment, okay? Tell me the end result. This is your conclusion. That's the end of your project, okay? And this is just another reminder about pictures and drawings. I suggest you start searching the web for some images that you may want to have printed out on your board that relate to your project. You can always visit a local library to have these printed out for you so that you can paste them onto your board. And of course, feel free to draw your own images as well if you want to. Just please make sure that they are big enough and legible so that we can see them from far away. Okay? And I believe that's it. So please let me know if you have any questions. You know I'm always here to help. And I look forward to week 5. We're getting much closer to finishing. I hope everyone is doing well. And I cannot wait for you guys to bring in your posters so I can see them. Okay? All right. Bye, guys. Have a good one.